Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. I am Philip Molisa. This episode, we are having a conversation around two very important subjects that are present in our country, Uganda, and one of them is the renewal of the national identity cards and certainly registration of new citizens of this country onto the database of NERA, and certainly the other topic is the increasingly unfolding terror situation in the country. We've had a series of experiences as regards terror, including bomb threats, but also real bomb activity in the country. If you remember very well on matters there was a situation in Nyonyo. Recently, we had a situation here at Kalewe. We had another situation, I think, in Gayaza, and a couple of many things the intelligence community and indeed other security agencies keep telling us that they have thwarted a series of terror situations in the country, and we want to, at a community level, make an assessment of what this is and certainly how the communities can keep themselves secure from the dangers that come with terrorism. And joining on that conversation is a panel of distinguished citizens in different communities of this beautiful country, Uganda. And certainly I will invite them to first say hello to our viewers before we get into the depth of the conversation. I will start with you, Council Ernest Talwana. Council, greetings, welcome to the conversation.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, greetings, welcome to the conversation, and how is where you are?
I beg your pardon?
Greetings, say hello to the viewers so that we continue the conversation.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. And yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ernest, for joining us. I also have Ronald Luke. Ronald works with the Uganda Police Force. Ronald, greetings, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to interact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. And I also have Flavia Piloya Laka. Flavia, greetings, welcome to the conversation. I hope I capture the pronunciation of the last name quite well. How are you, and welcome to the conversation?
Thank you so much, Steve. The last name is Lake, not Laka.
Oh,
but
my apologies.
all is well. Yeah, thank you so much. I look forward to this conversation with everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lake, for joining us. And Denmark, I don't know whether now you have a solution to your microphone. Are you able to unmute now and speak to us? Because we really need to hear from you, and nothing can happen if your microphone is mute. So I don't know what solution we can get for that, and because we shall need to hear from you as we continue the conversation. But once again, I welcome you all to this conversation here on Civic Space TV. And in this episode, I want us to start for the first round with the national identity card renewal and registration that is underway across the country. We know that the National Identification and Registration Agency rolled out effective 27th May this activity where they say they are targeting to renew expired national identity cards to the tune of 15.8 million, and certainly they anticipate to register about 17 million new citizens that were not registered in the previous series of registrations. And I want to hear from you firstly, have you interacted with this particular process in your communities? And if you have, how is it going? Is it smooth enough? And certainly, what do you say about the response of the people, and giving us what you think is not going well, and certainly how it can be improved in your specific community where you have interacted with this process? I'll start with you, Comrade Ernest, have you interacted with the national ID renewal registration exercise, and certainly how is it in your community? Yes, I hear
Okay,
you.
yes, I've interacted with it mostly as a passerby, either my way to work or coming from work. And in my opinion, yeah, it's a good measure. Obviously, a lot of people had their IDs expired in the past 2 years and have had difficulties either applying for work or applying for documentation cross border. So yeah, I can genuinely say it's a good measure. My only issue with it is there tends to be a lot of bottlenecks. You can clearly see that when they announced, a lot of people rushed to it, and then you can see about 200 people lining up, and obviously there are only like about 4 or 5 officials attending to people renewing IDs. So ideally, or rather, what I believe should be done is maybe IDs should be renewed in a phased manner. Maybe if they can say we are starting with this sub-county, or we are starting with this village, or we are starting with this age group, it would be a bit more tactful compared to right now just saying everyone should come and register.
Yes, thank you, Ernest, for that account. And it's good to know that at least in your community, you are seeing activity in terms of the registration or renewal of these IDs, and certainly you make a few recommendations. Flavia, I want to hear from you. You see, we are talking about an activity that is going to consume about 666 billion shillings of the coffers of the Ugandan government. Have you seen any activity in your community, and what would be your assessment of what is happening so far in terms of registration and renewal of national identity cards? Yes, Flavia.
Thank you so much, Philip. I want to believe I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Am I audible enough? Okay, thank you so much once again. Before I delve into this discussion, I first want to take us way back in time when the whole national identification project was started. If you're to look closely in the year 2014, I remember that is when the country officially launched the national ID project, with its first batch of IDs being released for a validity of 10 years that expired last year. Now, the registration of the Persons Act, which was passed formally to establish NIRA and its mandate for registration and identification, was officially done in 2015, which proceeded with a mass registration of the citizens of this country. Fast forward to 2024, NIRA as a body sat and planned a mass enrollment and ID renewal process for those whose IDs had expired, as well as register the previously unregistered citizens who did not have the time to take in their details and have their ID cards done, because some people had so many other beliefs around it that they could still access services and everything in Uganda, just like other people say, to them was a joke. And yeah, we've seen the ID registration take shape. Fast forward to this current activity that is taking place, I want to agree to the fact that where I come from have seen the activity take shape from the district to the city level. The activity is ongoing, but the other thing that I want to comment about is the overwhelming number of people vis-a-vis the people who attend to these citizens, because you go in the morning and find that people have already lined up to over 100 or even plus. Okay, so people who are attending to these citizens who tend to renew their details or register for the first time are very few, and you see people standing there under the hot sun the whole day, and others even end up not having their IDs renewed or registered. That is one noticeable thing that I've seen taking shape. The other thing that have been also reliably informed is the monetization of this process. Much as we know that this is a government-aided project and it's supposed to be totally free of charge, and we want to believe that the people who are doing this exercise are getting at least a formidable amount of facilitation to carry on the process. But then you understand that from 1-2 people who come back from this process, you hear them saying, I had to pay in some small fees so that I could be worked on, which is really a very worrying situation, because for someone who comes from a very far place, they reach this center so that they can have their ID renewed, and then they need again to pull out some amount of money so that they can be worked on. I think this is really unfair to the citizens of this country in some areas, okay? The other thing that is not going on well is persons with disabilities. To me, I think states should have clearly put out guidelines that of the 5 work days, at least persons with disabilities should have been accorded 1 or 2 of the working days so that they have it to themselves. Because you see that these are people who receive less attention in society in the first place. And now they also have to go through that long queue so that the details can be captured. So if there was a specific day, let's say maybe Monday or Wednesday, to cater for the persons with disabilities so that they only come and they are worked on so they can be able to go back. But then you see that the overwhelming number is coming from all of us, the people who are able, those who are disabled, and then they have to carry caretakers or helpers, which is really not a good thing, because people have health conditions, and if they had catered for all of us differently, I think the able people would have their different days, and then the persons with disabilities would also have their own days. This would really bring the aspect of inclusion to a very good extent. Thank you. But it's a very good process, especially with the new features that based on these IDs, and also the fact that we have actually entered into an electoral process. So without the IDs, we will not be able to cast our votes, and yet our voices really count. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flavia, and indeed you give us a quite rich submission there, and certainly giving a couple of recommendations for what can be done to make it work better, especially that one in regards to persons with disabilities. And thank you so much. Ronald, one of the conversations that arise whenever there is such an activity is community pooling organizations or institutions or places. And here you talk about things like schools, things like marketplaces, things like the institution you work for, the Uganda Police, the Army, and often they say organizations like NERA should put centers where these institutions are, such that, for example, police officers at a particular barracks are able to register in a particular day. And you had Flavia talking about creating a special day for example, persons with disabilities. How does it work for persons like you in the police force who are at most times on duty, and you may not have time to get into the very long lines again that Flavia referred to? Are you given special consideration by NERA to make sure you renew your details in the national database?
Oh, thank you, Philip. I appreciate the topic. It's very important for us as security personnel to be interested in such topics, especially a topic which can, in reference to a document which can bring into one order. I mean the national ID. This project has been of very help to us security in detail. And as a person in particular, it has been helpful because I can most services in Uganda now requires that you want to present a national ID, even to open just a bank account. even to migrate to a next village national ID. So when you present that document, is as good as you have said, I am a Ugandan by the word go. Yes, I thank NERA, the administration of NERA. I thank IGP because I know he worked hand in hand with the to make it very possible and easy for us in the security. Yes, you have mentioned has given us address as we have put. They have been at our headquarters for about a month now in the process of giving us clearance, renewing application. All our families have given that opportunity when we use that window of Naguru headquarters to have our details captured and changed or renewed. So those services have been provided for us. We are very, very grateful for that. I thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Ronald. And it's good to understand that you have actually participated, and indeed there is consideration for the people in uniform. It is very important as it is for the rest of the population. Denmark, I hope you are able to unmute now. Denmark, yes.
Yes, please.
So I want to hear your experience in your community. How are people responding to this exercise? And certainly, what do you think is not going well that can be improved at the level of the institution of NERA?
Well, thank you, Marisa. And let me start by appreciating my fellow panels who have already presented, and at the same time, allow me to push my apologies before you for this technical error that has been disturbing me on my gadget. In my region, I think issues that are affecting, for example, the region of Madame Flavia are not far different from the issue that are affecting my region. For example, when it goes to the staff of NERA, I realized that these people have developed a habit of soliciting some funds from people who want to register and update their IDs anytime. Therefore, that creates a challenge that people who don't have money, for example, to meet the conditions of the NERA staff, may not be worked on as early as possible. And yet, in actual sense, maybe the same people who don't have money are the same people who committed themselves to do what the nation want them to do, using the identity card. For example, voting. The ordinary people, in this case, are in my region, are the most people who usually participate fully when it comes to election than the people we think that they are elites. Secondly, I have realized that even NERA staff, they also have a very big challenge of lacking resources. For example, the gadgets they have are not enough in sometimes. You find them surely trying to figure out and fight to do the work in time, but because of the challenge of the resources that are available given to them, it becomes a problem as well. Another thing that I observed, Mr. Philip, is that even human resource, the staff of NERA is as well not enough to accommodate the number of people within my region, and that delays the process as well. Another thing maybe I observed, Mr. Philip, is that in some areas, the environment is kind of hostile, where you find that there are poor developed infrastructure to accommodate the process of registering and updating the people who come for that very activity. And maybe lastly, is that in some areas, I have found that they also have the issue of network problem. You find that network is not favorable for the NERA staff to do their work in time. I thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Comrade Adios, for that, and certainly a couple of observations there, including infrastructure, network, and resources for indeed the staff that are doing the registration. And I think these are some of the things the leadership of NERA should look into, but hopefully before the exercise comes to an end, and I know there is, it should take about, they said they would use about 10 months to make sure they undertake this exercise fully, and it is just a month into the exercise. And Ernest, The other thing that keeps cropping up, and certainly people ask, is it best practice, and perhaps is it based on any benchmark or research, that a national ID should expire? I want to hear your thoughts on that. Should national IDs expire, and why should that be the case? Yes, Ernest.
Yes, so there's never been an official statement on why national IDs expire. I mean, I've looked through the laws, I've looked through policy papers, and I've never seen a premise. It's just something that our authorities decided upon. Why is unknown to me. What I know is that in Kenya, there was a contestation before the courts of law in which the courts decided that someone's citizenship cannot be stripped away. So it is illogical for a national ID to expire in that sense. In Uganda, it is peculiar. I don't know. Some people argue that it is a money grabbing venture, but I mean, it's a service. National IDs are a service. We need them for various documentation purposes and general documentation purposes. I'll leave it at that. So you can see how obviously the idea of a national ID expiring lacks sense. At best, it should be that you can at least renew your document when it wears out. But in other jurisdictions, let me say like in South Africa, there's a move by Home Affairs to digitize national IDs so that someone can have a digital copy in their phones. But anyway, the truth is South Africa is a country where and there's a significant number of people who have phones, unlike Uganda. So that measure might not work as well. Yeah, maybe here it can work in a hybrid format whereby it's an option for some people to have a digital ID. Nonetheless, yes, I do see how it is strange that national IDs expire. It does not make any sense. It does not have any merit beyond being some sort of money-making opportunity for NIRA. Yeah, that's what I can say.
All right, thank you for that. And I say it does not make sense for an ID, for a national ID to expire. Flavia, I want to quickly pick a thought on that. Do you think national IDs should be expiring? But two, what is the reason for the very high number of Ugandans that do not have national IDs? What is the reason for that? Yes, Flavia.
Thank you so much, Philip, and my colleague panelists for their submissions. To respond to that, to me, I think the reason as to why a very high number of people do not have their IDs is one, because when the ID registration process started way back in 2014, some people take it into account that maybe it would be a very crucial thing to do for you to access services. Evidently, in this country today, even within the member states, at least if you present your national ID, you are considered an eligible citizen of Uganda. Okay, that is for a case of Ugandan citizens. And then also, some people were just so ignorant to do it because when the process started, the activity was really decentralized to all these points of the country. No matter where you are, you find that there is a point where you just go register and have your ID. But then there are people who aren't bothered about it, just like the things that have been, just like the government programs, or let us say, in case of an outbreak, we are told to go and vaccinate against it. Someone says, even if I don't vaccinate, at the end of the day, I'll still be healthy. So some of them transferred the same notion to this national identification process, that even if I don't have an ID, for as long as I'm a citizen, I'm going to have access to these things. But as time went by, we really realized that without the ID, you cannot access quite a number of services, because the people who are to give you the services need to know who you are. I don't think it's a bad thing for someone to know who you are really. And then we are the same citizens who keep crying year in, year out about our leaders. you are not able to cast a vote because you do not have an ID, meaning you do not belong to any society or you do not come from anywhere, because you cannot put that voice of yours into a vote that will later count when we are putting our leaders into offices. So ignorance has been there, and then in other places, people were not really educated enough to understand the importance of the national IDs. Okay, you find that NIRA agents were placed, yes, in all villages, but then others did not go ahead to sensitize the masses of that particular place on the importance of this very identity card. That is why someone refused. Maybe let's say someone refused to go and put in their details because they thought it is just some scamming venture. Someone wants my details and then they want to use it for their own benefits. I think those are some of the reasons as to why we have quite a number of high people without their IDs. And then also there are people who did not register for these IDs because the services did not reach where they are, much as it was decentralized. The ID registration process did not reach to where people, to where certain people are. And also there are people who needed guidance on filling in these details. That is for people who did not go to school. They needed someone to be there one-on-one to take them through how they should put in these details. Yeah. So someone could have ended up giving up instead of trying to seek for guidance. And then you also find that the people who are the people who are identified to go and help the masses way back in the villages there are young people. We young people are very impatient people, that I'm supposed to do this work and then there's an old woman there whom I'm supposed to really help to do this kind of to do this form registration. So you find that someone ends up leaving this household because they feel like it's a lot of work for them. And to me, I would feel like it's not just about recruiting whoever is eligible, but then if we could look at the eligibility of a person vis-a-vis where they come from. I come from Gulu and Amanacholi, so if you take me to any part of this region, I think I can speak my language. Even to an old person, I can translate to them what is needed for them to do so that they can have that details. Yeah, that is briefly on why the people who did not register, and then also being very young. Much as at a later time, IDs were taken to school to register everybody. There are people who are first waiting to clock 18 and then go and register. Then there are people who first needed a reason for them to register for these IDs, that maybe now you need to travel cross country and your ID is needed. And then that is where someone saw urgency. Yeah, those are some of the reasons I would add to the high number of people who do not have IDs. Yeah.
Thank you, Flavia, for that. And lastly, about this particular topic before we switch to the issue of security. Denmark, I want to hear from you. There is always a question that arises that you will have your national ID, but when you go for any service, for example, in government, they'll still ask you to produce your an LLC later. They will ask you, what is your name? Who is your parent? Who is well? And people thought that in having a national ID, the government should be able to have all this information about you, and certainly you don't have to answer any other questions about identity. What is the missing link between the information available courtesy of the national IDs and certainly the need to continue producing LC letters and you having to explain yourself whenever you go to seek a service that requires identification? Yes, Denmark.
Well, Mr. Fripp, clearly, I think the ID should be one of the main documents that should be defining who the person is. But due to the factors that maybe in Uganda we have got a lot of people who know how to make forgeries, I think it is also important for an ID to be backed up by a certain document, which happens to be an LC letter, to prove that exactly it's you. Because people forge IDs. At the same time, people forge LC letters. But then you may find that someone who is interested in your LC letter knows the person who is in charge of that very office. So I think with time we should consider on how best we can make that very ID card a perfect document that is hard to forge, such that we leave out the issue of the LC1 letters. But for the meantime, that because we have an ID that is easy to forge, that can be duplicated at NASA and maybe in other areas of Uganda, it is as very important to consider the LC letter in order to avoid issues of forgeries. I thank you.
Thank you, Denmark, and everyone for your deliberations on the national ID renewal and registration exercise. And you are still on Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV. We're having a conversation about the national ID renewal exercise, but also now we shift into the next segment of our conversation, which is about security and specifically about the rising cases of terror or attempted terror in our communities. And certainly we have had a series of experience with people that intend to carry bombs into our communities to create danger there. And very recently we saw an experience near Kalere Market where the UPDF and the entire intelligence fraternity was able to SWAT one terrorist that was intending to go and cause trouble at Kalero Market, so one during Mother's Day, and a series of others that have been put out in statements by our security agencies. And I want to start with you, Ronald. Look, we keep hearing these, first of all, we watch some of them on TV, but also in statements from the intelligence community and indeed police and the army. You as someone that is quite close to security and indeed as a participant yourself, first of all, how would you assess the security situation in one your community, but also giving a broader look at how our communities are organized? Do you think our communities are secure in terms of terror, but two, with these cases that are emerging day in, day out in our communities? How should our people look, but also respond to the situations that are emerging in the society? Yes, Afande Ronald.
Thank you, Philip. I think I've been always very clear when it comes to our personal security. Before even we look at the terrorists and their actors and the parties involved, I think personal security is a priority. Our community should be well versed with the security around them. How someone is secured, how someone is secured personally is look around you, see what makes you insecure, and please make a report. We've always had the toll-free line, people to report such instances. And we have always been conducting community sensitization. Any objects which you see before your eyes, you report on how security was because we have been so close with the community. They're the one who have been giving us this intelligence, and we have been positive when we react to such incidences. So, how people get secured first is by them being safe. Then make reports to security officers who will be in position to respond. The community is ready to engage with us. They've always been doing that. And we appreciate the effort that they've always showed us when it comes to such a duty. We have received tips from community where we ascertain that true, this has happened. And for that matter, we really applaud police and the civilians, and mostly the local leaders, because these people who see such activities ended up confiding in the police in their local leaders, and the local leaders in turn pass on the information to the security, who in turn also come in and rescue the situation. So I think with that cordial relationship, our people can be safer than we expect when we are coordinating threats between ourselves. Even when you look at the whole constitution, we will at one point, and most cases, work with the community leaders, local leaders, and ensure that our community is safe. So that is key. if the communities are working hand with hand with authorities, I think we shall be safer than never before. I also give a tip on our travelers. I see some bit of gap. I give you an example. You are from Dokolo, you're coming to Kampala. You have your bag, you're entering into a public bus. So far, so good. We have never registered such instances. But where things are become tight, the terrorists look for other ways. I give you, because they're targeting a number of people. A bus has about 75 plus people. So if our people who are dealing in a public transport system do not check on that, I open up the eyes of such people who are in this transport system, that even if we are admitting our travelers, we need to be very sure. Whom are we taking in? What are we carrying? We might be carrying dangerous weapons in the same bus, seated with it, not knowing that it's about to blow us out. So that one should need to be checked in. And that one goes along to our police stations and police posts, which are at bus parks and taxi parks in all over the country. This should be a priority to police posts and OCs of those stations to ensure that our park is safe, so that travelers, because this is where people gather and travel. So while people are gathering, can we ensure that they are safe before even they spot the deadly weapon to report to us? So in that way, we shall reduce and we shall ensure that our people are safe. I thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Afande Oluka, certainly for those insights, but also for the words of caution you give to our communities on how they can keep safe, and certainly beginning with being vigilant around each one's self. Anis, I want to hear from you. First of all, why would Uganda be a target for terrorists? And certainly, should people in communities behave around these emerging threats? Yes, Anis, in your view.
Generally, terror has been something that has existed for as long as, should I say, humans have lived in communities. There's a certain propensity of human beings to violence, and that is something that can never be dismissed. It's something as old as civilization itself. Either we attack each other because one person has something another person doesn't, or because of disagreements over different ideologies, over different forms of different ways of life. It's just something that's as old as a nation state itself. With modern systems of governance, and generally with people living in communities, you tend to notice that we have divergent opinions, we have divergent views on how we live, and that's what causes some people to go to extremes. And usually people who go to extremes are people who, should I say, have their own internal extremist views, and they try to find an outlet for them. Most of the outlets are unsuspecting members of the public, because you hardly see them attacking someone who has the ability to fight back. So generally, terror is something that exists in our society, and I don't think we can ever get rid of it. The ideal way to deal with it is to mitigate it. And that's what something you can, should I say, praise our armed forces and our security forces for. They do try to mitigate the number of threats that we are hit with. Because apart from these few we hear about, there are a lot of threats that do come up, and I believe that credit is due to our forces for helping to clamp on them, because every now and again you hear a travel advisor from the US Embassy, from the British High Commission, but you never really see the threat hitting us. So credit where it's due to our security apparatus for helping to mitigate all those threats. But generally, I will stand by the assertion that terror is something that is as old as human civilization. Human beings are always have a propensity for violence. It's just something that is part of us.
All right, thank you, Ernest, for your thoughts on that particular issue. And Denmark, I want to hear from you as these threats and Ernest in one way tells us that certainly it is here with us and we can't just get rid of it. But and well understanding that we have the Uganda police, we have the UPDF and every other institution that is involved in securing Ugandans and Uganda at large. How should the indigenous communities in our villages, in our schools, and certainly how should they respond to some of these emerging threats as a society continues to develop? What should be the reaction and behavior of people to make sure they are safe in the communities that they stay in? And starting with you, certainly in your community, how do you think you can best secure your community even before police and EVDF gets involved? Yes, Denmark.
Well, thank you, Philip, and allow me also appreciate the other panels who have just communicated about this very matter. Mr. Philip, Uganda has a wide history in relation with what is happening today. You see, 63 years ago, it is on record that Uganda has never had a peaceful election. And it surprises me that in most cases, Mr. Philip, if we are to be honest to one another, you will realize that terror cases usually raise or increase when it is coming close to election time, election season. It is not clear why that has become a habit within our country, that terror cases rise during the election season, and after election season, terror cases go down. And in this case, Mr. Philip and others, I am trying to find out why security has focused more on killing the suspects than arresting the suspects and maybe try them before courts of laws, and they tell exactly what was their intention and maybe the source or the origin of the problem of why they are doing so. For me, as a person, I think to get aware and maybe to prepare for such kind of situation, I strongly believe that the most first important thing is sensitization. Let people understand the history of Uganda, where we have reached, where we are going, and then prepare for such kind of situation. Without getting enough information, definitely we shall not have the solution of this problem within our country.
Thank you, Denmark, for that. And for you, I see you quite need a solution. And Flavia, I don't know whether you have, by way of recommendation, what you think can be done to comfort the heart of Denmark here in terms of a solution that can bring this down or even eliminate it from our society. And certainly we know it is not just unique to Uganda. These are things that keep happening from all over the world in both the developed and underdeveloped countries of the world. How can, at the level of community, people be inspired to get out of activities that will create harm and danger to their fellow citizens and certainly guarantee a peaceful and sustainable community going forward as a country? Yes, Flavia.
Once again, thank you so much, Philip, and my co-panelists who have really submitted in quite reaching ideas. I wouldn't deviate so much from what everyone else has said concerning the security situation, especially in Uganda and surrounding areas. In communities, really, these terror threats cause panics, yes, much as the attempts are not happening in the communities deep down in these rural places, but we see that most of it is happening quite a lot around the capital of this country. Yes, I also want to agree with my previous speaker that for as long as Uganda has existed, yes, terror has also existed. When you look at a case of every region has had a terror history. to undergo northern Uganda, west, everywhere in this country, and even the surrounding areas. But ideally, I would appeal to the security organs, much as they're doing a very commendable job to neutralize these suspects before they go ahead to cause a lot of damage. They should as well sensitize. People need sensitization. People need to be told the kind of period that we are in, that it's not a normal period. Every time there is election, you see, from the pre-electoral process to the post-electoral period, there are always cases of violences, yes, terror attempts here and there. But all in all, these things cause a lot of panic to the citizens, because someone gets so scared. I come from a place where we have been traumatized for so long. So when we see these bombings happening, someone may even fear to get out of home and move on the streets, because we may think these same people are coming back for us. Yeah, so I think people need to be told what is on ground and how best they can react to these situations. Community members are very good at being vigilant, just like Afande has said. People report suspected behavior. They've always helped security neutralize some of these people. On the issue of people being killed without trial, I am not really someone in the security field, but from my little knowledge, I think sometimes it's very good to neutralize a person before they go ahead to cause a lot of harm, because the whole process of being tried, they could be breeding other points through that trial, and it could be causing a lot of annoyance to their cliques. So sometimes, yes, it's very good to neutralize before. We would rather lose one person than lose 1,000 citizens. I would really agree to that, because as a country, it would send us into turmoil if we keep losing people every day in high tones. And then also, when a person is tried, I really want to trust our intelligence that they've been doing a very good job. By the time they trail a suspected terrorist, I think they really would have had quite good information about this person. So by the time they come to neutralize you, why are they not neutralizing everyone? So there is something about that person who is suspected, okay, to have links to these terror attempts. But also, I would appeal to the general public to be very vigilant, to stay very safe. Ideally, security starts from within. It starts from you. It starts from me. You cannot just see a suspected. You cannot just see someone behaving in a queer manner and then you keep quiet. You really have to be vigilant as we head towards the general polls of this country. And yeah, the police will keep doing their job, but they also have to really beef the security, because we travel a lot, and I'm not yet seeing security being tightened in some of these bus parks, because we enter buses with bags, items, and sometimes they are not checked. So these are the points where these terror attempts are always key to happen from, especially where people are very crowded. So much as we are trying to be vigilant, a security should also heighten their activities, especially in places around markets, schools, it could be churches and any other gatherings, for us to have a peaceful stay in this country, as well as we progress towards the general elections.
Yes, thank you, Flavia, for that. And certainly, as we get to end this conversation, Afande, I want to hear from you two things. First of all, and I know you do not speak for you are not the spokesperson of police or any other security agents, but in your own assessment, what is the capacity of police in terms of responding to these threats? But two, if we happen to get unfortunate incidents, how is police prepared to respond? But two, would you assure Ugandans that they are actually secure, and indeed some of these things that have been emergent in these days are going to be wiped out in the shortest time possible? Yes, Afande. I think we have challenges with connecting to Afande Luke. But once again, I want to appreciate.
I
Yes,
hello.
Afande.
Yes,
Yes,
Philip.
yes.
I missed it. I missed the real question. I had a bit of it. I request you give me back.
Yes, I want you to give us an assessment of the capacity of police to respond to these terror threats, but to give assurances to the country that actually police is capable to protect people and indeed their property from some of these evil members of society. Apande, I don't know whether you can hear me because your microphone is now mute. If you can unmute and speak to us.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you for that question, but I would love to assure the public and the community at large that Uganda Police Force as an institution has the capacity. In which way? We have a fully furnished directorate. If we mean a directorate, we mean someone where, we mean a unit which is fully fledged, headed by a director, a directorate called counter-terrorism. Counter-terrorism deals with such. These people are trained. We have training wings for counter-terrorism in Olilim. We have training wings in other regions in Uganda, where we send our officers fresh from Kabaye who have been trained in a basic training, then we go and upgrade them and we train them on how to counter terrorism. I have seen in very many showcases where police have showcased its strength in how they counter terrorism. Very many occasions we have seen them come into play. You've always seen them, they've always put on black uniform, and you see them very sad. Now, that is how you deal with terrorists. You don't have to smile with terrorists. And I see these people are up for their games. They're up for the job, to the task. They've always been there. They've always reacted. Even behind the scenes when you are not seeing them, they sometimes go underground cover. They sometimes remove the black uniform and go underground collecting intelligence. In the same directorate, we have attached people in crime intelligence who are attached in that same directorate, who go and carry for us assessment, gather for us intelligence on who are the likely potential threats in terms of terror. We have a unit, a directorate, and a unit where we deal concurrently with them. We liaise with the Interpol. If terrorists sneak into the country through our system without us noticing, or when we notice that they've already sneaked into the country, we do all the due diligence and liaise with other counterparts, and we ensure we pick these people and take them back. Every terrorist who have come here, their first is rough. They have found it not very conducive for them to what? To a shade in Uganda. And in most cases, we have neutralized them. Those who have showed resistance, those who have showed persistence in trying to cause havoc in the community, we have neutralized them. We have brought very many reports where these people have been neutralized. And don't think it is no any other party who has done that. It is Uganda Police Force under the Directorate of Counterterrorism. So this unit is fully fledged. It has all the resources available to counter terrorism in Uganda. I thank you.
Afande Ronaldo, look, thank you so much for the assurance, and certainly thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation today. Council Ernest Talwana, your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. We appreciate you so much. And indeed, Denmark, adios, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. And last but not least, Flavia, lawyer, Lepa, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. You have had a very rich and indeed good conversation. Special thanks to you, our viewers. We appreciate you so much for keeping it civic specific and indeed the community voices Uganda. Special thanks to the technical team and indeed the wider Center for Constitutional Governance and all our partners that make sure that we're able to produce this work and certainly put a break to the growth and sustainability of our country. I am Philip Mulisa and I say good evening and may you have freedom always.